Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So we are now only 4 months away from the 2024 draft. It has really crept up on us for the most part. We're going to be in full draft mode in like a month or two from now. So I thought I would update my 2024 mock draft. The last one I did was in early January, a month and a half ago. So I want to start pumping these out leading up to the draft. Basically every single month, have an updated mock draft. So we're going to be doing mock draft 2.0 today. First, let's go through the original one, 1.0. It looked something like this: Zane Parrick, Michael Brandsegnigaard, Zeev Boyum, Silyev, Yurachek, Connolly, Yakimchuk, Artemanov. It's going to look different, much different. The first, obviously, the teams are also going to be different. Celebrini, Yzerman, Demidov, Leshinov, Lindstrom, Helenius, Dickinson, and Cadden. And with Cadden, when looking at the new order, it goes Chicago, San Jose, Anaheim, Columbus, Arizona, Montreal, Ottawa, Buffalo, Calgary, Minnesota, Seattle, my New York Islanders, believe it or not, New Jersey Devils, Pittsburgh Penguins. With the Penguins, this is actually the San Jose Sharks pick, unless they jump the 10 spots all the way up to 15th overall. So it's going to be the San Jose Sharks pick, most likely, Nashville, and then Washington. So yeah, the order has changed a decent amount in the NHL the last month and a half. And overall, these prospects have fallen and risen over the last month and a half. And again, with this mock draft, it's not my personal top 16. I've said that multiple times when it comes to mock drafts. This is what I think teams will do based on what the scouts are saying, based on what I think about these players to a degree, and also based on what these teams need in terms of what kind of young studs they have right now and overall team build. So without further ado, at 16th overall is the Washington Capitals, and I have them taking Tej Aginla. He bursted really onto the scene this year, had a pretty underwhelming draft year, -1 with the Seattle Thunderbirds. He had something like 18 points in 56 games, but he is absolutely balling out. Him and Andrew Crystal have formed one of the best duos in the entire WHL. He has 38 goals, 28 assists for 66 points in around 58 games this year. He's displaying, like his father, an elite goal scorer, actually outscoring his father in the WHL comparatively in his draft year. Do I think he's going to be the next Jarome Iginla? No, absolutely not. But I think he can be a high-level first liner. And looking at the Washington Capitals, Iginla tends to play on the left side. He's a left winger. So I think him and Ryan Leonard could form a very elite goals. If they get a playmaking center of the future, let's say in next draft, I think that could be one of the best lines in the entire NHL in 3 to 4 years. Iginla, Leonard, and more so a pass-first forward. So I have him going to the Washington Capitals at 16th overall. At 15th, I have Liam Greentree of the Windsor Spitfires of the OHL. He's a 6'3", skilled, solid two-way guy, has 29 goals, 44 assists, 73 points in 50 games in the OHL. One of the best draft-eligible players in the OHL this year in terms of production. That is elite, almost 1.5 points per game type of production. The skating is a bit of a concern, but I think at his height, 6'3", he's not going to have to be an absolute burner when it comes to it. The skill and potential of a guy like Liam Greentree, if you can figure out his skating and make him even above average skater, I think he's going to be an average to below average one at the next level. But if you can work on that skating, you could have a legit 70-ish point solid two-way guy. And when looking at the Nashville Predators, Barry Trotz has stressed that he wants these more so high upside guys when it comes to the draft. Last year, obviously, took Matthew Wood. I think, was it 15th overall? It was like 15th or 16th. It might have actually been 15th. They have back-to-back 15th overall picks in this situation. But Matthew Wood, another big-ass left winger, pair him with Liam Greentree, similarly to Iginla and Leonard. That could be an absolutely disgusting line in 3 to 4 years for the Nashville Predators. So I like Liam Greentree. Kind of reminds me of a Quinn Musty last year, also a bigger guy, 6'2", 6'3", that did have some skating concerns, but has taken that next step in the OHL this season. I think Liam Greentree can be similar to that and turn into a very high-level prospect. At 14th overall, I have the San Jose Sharks taking Adam Jiricek. Yes, he is brother of David Jiricek, the Columbus Blue Jackets guy that has some beef with the Columbus Blue Jackets, keep on sending them down, but that's a different video. Adam Jiricek, I think a very interesting prospect in terms of him being injured for most of the season. But when looking at his last year, as well as just his tape in general, he is a very smooth skating two-way defenseman at a solid height of 6'3". I don't think that he's as good as prospect as David Jiricek, but David Jiricek was like my number one defenseman back in 2022, top 5 prospect. But I still think Adam Jiricek potentially could end up being, he has the high potential in this draft of being a legit potential number one, definitely end up being a top pair guy. And when looking at the San Jose Sharks, last year they took Will Smith, they took Quinn and Musty, they have the they have the second overall selection in this mock draft. So I think they're probably going to go forward there, not to spoil the later. So I think here they get that defenseman in order to potentially one day be their franchise defenseman. Jiricek, I do think that he is on the outside looking in when it comes to these elite defensemen, but he's definitely in that next tier down where San Jose would be picking at 14th overall. In terms of 13th overall, I have the New Jersey Devils taking Michael Brandseg Nygaard. I think that Tom Fitzgerald might be a little bit aggressive with this pick. Nygaard playing right now in the Swedish, I'm going to botch the name, but their second tier league. It starts with an A. I'm actually absolutely going to botch it. He's doing very solid. He has 16 points in 37 games. It's basically the Swedish league, AHL. He was dominant in Swedish juniors this year, 12 points in 7 games. They had to send him up because he was too goddamn good. Had a very solid showing at the World Juniors on a not that good of a Norwegian team. 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. I think that he has all the makings of a potential first liner. And when looking at the New Jersey Devils, they already have Hughes, Nemec, and Seamus Casey. I think they're going to go more so forward, especially with the play of Timo Meier not being very exceptional, as well as Dawson Mercer not really taking that next step, had a really rough start. I think they're going to go with the forward here in terms of bolstering their overall forward core. I don't think there's a goalie that you're going to take at goddamn 13th overall to be your eventual franchise guy. There's no Askarov, there's no Wallstead in this draft, so I think they end up going with a forward. At 12th overall, my New York Islanders, I have them taking Konsta Helenius. I have been very high on this guy. I still have him as like my 4th or 5th best prospect. But in terms of what I think, the way that he's trending, at least in these mock drafts, in these evaluations, teams are not very high on him. And mainly because he's more so of a safe two-way finish center. I don't think that teams see really the high upside. I just see an extremely high floor. I know he doesn't have the potential of a Caden Lindstrom, of a Artem Leshinov, of a Anton Silya, but I still love him, and I think this would be a really good fit for the New York Islanders. So I can see Helenius falling in this draft when you look at some of the more shiny toys that could go ahead of him between like the 7th to 11th range. So I have him going to the New York Islanders. I think he'd be fantastic on the Islanders and really eventually take over that second line center spot once Brock Nelson either gets traded if the Islanders keep on playing as bad as they are right now, or just naturally because Brock Nelson's like 32, 33 years old. I think he would eventually be our second line center in 3 to 4 years. And considering what he's been doing over in Liga, he has the 4th most points in Liga by a draft eligible player, just past Patrick Laine's point total, and is only behind Capo Caco, who, Rangers botched him, and Mikael Granlund, who was very good in Nashville and very good in Minnesota, and of course Alexander Barkov. So he's having one of the best draft years ever compared to other Finnish players. I think he's going to be a very, very good second line center or a low end 70 to 75 point Selke level first line center, and would be fantastic in New York. God damn, I'm only at the 12th overall pick. We're already like 8 minutes in. In terms of the 11th overall pick, I have the Kraken taking Carter Yakimchuk. Yakimchuk is a goal-scoring defenseman. He has 26 goals, 32 assists for 58 points in 53 games right now for the Calgary Hitmen of the WHL. I could potentially see him being like a Noah Dobson 2.0. He's a bigger-bodied right-handed defenseman at 6'3" with an absolute cannon of a shot, really sees the ice well at the blue line. And when looking at the Seattle Kraken, they have a bunch of elite young forwards in terms of Beniers, Shane Wright, Edward Shale, who they picked last year. Furcus is killing it, who was a second-round pick in 2022. Carson Rakoff, 2023 second-round pick. They don't really have that elite defenseman prospect, so I think they definitely go defenseman. They have some solid guys like Riker Evans, Caden Price, and Lucas Dragicevic, but Yakimchuk would immediately become their defenseman of the future. I don't think they go forward here, especially in a draft that has so many good young defensemen. At 10th overall, I have the Minnesota Wild taking Zeev Boyum. I almost said Shea, which is his brother. Zeev Boyum. I have them taking Zeev Boyum. 36 points in 28 games. It is the best freshman year by a draft eligible player in college hockey history. Yes, there are some serious defensive concerns, but I don't think that he is this all offense, no defense. He's not this reckless offensive defenseman that just jumps up on every single play. He does a lot of damage at his blue line. He's at the blue line. He's so agile with his skating, fantastic edges. I think he eventually can be a very good top pair defenseman, but will he ever be a number 1, 2-way beast? I'm not sure of that, but when looking at the Minnesota Wild, similarly to the Kraken, they're loaded in terms of young forwards, in terms of Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi, Danila Yurov, Liam Ogren, Riley Heidt. You give Brock Faber, Zeev Boyum pair. Boyum is obviously left-handed, Faber's right-handed. That could potentially be one of the most electric pairs in all of hockey in terms of Zeev Boyum's fantastic offensive play. Faber's still very good defensively, offensively as well, but he's more so a defensive guy. That could develop into one of the best pairs in the entire NHL, and Boyum could probably take over that number 1 power play role and give Faber maybe a little bit more of a break to play in more defensive and penalty kill situations. So I like Zeev Boyum to the Minnesota Wild. 9th overall, Sam Dickinson to the Calgary Flames. Dickinson's having a very good draft year, 58 points in 55 games for the London Knights. But honestly, those numbers are a little bit deceiving on the, makes him look worse, considering that Oliver Bonk is kind of their number 1 offensive defenseman. If they didn't have Bonk, he would probably have 65, maybe even 70 points. He is that future. I don't know if he's ever going to be 60-plus points, but I think he's going to be a 50-point, very solid 2-way guy, obviously 6'2". And when coming to the Calgary Flames, similar to the last 2 teams, they have a bunch of young talent, young forward talent, Sam Honzek, Connor Zary, Matt Coronado. You go out, you get your future hopeful number 1 defenseman that can learn from a Mackenzie Weegar and a Rasmus Anderson. I think Sam Dickinson makes a lot of sense for the Calgary Flames at 9th overall. 8th overall, we have the Buffalo Sabres selecting Anton Silyev. Anton Silyev might have the highest upside in this entire draft. Obviously, 6'7". The Zdeno Chara comparisons come out every goddamn week. He is a very smooth skater for his size, a very high IQ guy, still growing into his body, but he is very ahead of his time, ahead of schedule compared to maybe a Dmitry Simashev last year that still went 6th overall. That was a little bit of a reach in my opinion, but still, Silyev is looking like an absolute stud. And when it comes to the Buffalo Sabres, they don't really have any draft position that they really need to figure out. I'd say they're more so stacked in terms of forward depth, but they do have Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin. I think in this situation, you just take the highest potential guy at that selection. If you're the Buffalo Sabres, your future's already looking pretty goddamn good. And Anton Silyev, especially in this range, has by far the highest potential. It would not shock me if Silyev ends up going 3rd, 4th, 5th overall. I'm a little bit lower on him than some, but I still think he has insane potential, and the Buffalo Sabres would be more than happy to take Silyev at this spot. At 7th overall, the Senators take Zane Parik, similarly to Yakimchuk, a beast of an offensive defenseman in terms of goal scoring and just overall. 27 goals, 52 assists, 79 points in 53 games in the OHL. He's outscoring his teammate Michael Misa, who is by far outscoring his teammate Michael Misa by almost 20, who was projected to be the 1st overall pick last year in 2025. So when looking at Zane Parik, he is a fantastic offensive defenseman. People have compared him to Cale Makar. Again, not going to say that he's next Cale Makar, but he is that fantastic skating offensive defenseman that is not afraid to rip it because he has one of the best shots in the entire OHL. And in terms of the Ottawa Senators, they obviously have Jake Sanderson and Thomas Chabot on that left side. Zane Parik's a right-handed defenseman. Maybe you pair him up with a Jake Sanderson down the line. Even though I really like the Artem Zub and Sanderson pair, when looking at Zane Parik, I think that he would eventually develop maybe even to the Senators' number 1. But having Sanderson, having Parik would absolutely be fantastic for the Ottawa Senators and potentially figure out their defensive problems. Obviously, goaltending is the number 1 problem, but I think the Senators would probably be smart to go defense on this, considering even though Josh Norris has kind of fallen off in terms of their second-line center, Shane Pinto has risen up and looks like a future potential center, and they're pretty set in terms of most of their forward core. So I think defenseman probably is the play for the Ottawa Senators at 7th overall. 6th overall, Montreal Canadiens, like the 1.0. I still have them taking Berkeley Cadden. Berkeley Cadden is just an absolute gamer, 89 points in 59 games in the WHL this year. That is the 5th highest points per game by a WHL player in their draft year since 2000. Obviously not Connor Bedard level, but he's putting up just about the same pace as a Leon Draisaitl. He's putting up more than Matthew Savoy, more than Zach Benson, more than Kirby Dach. This guy just produces at a high level. Yes, he is only 5'11" and 165 pounds. You can bulk him up. 5'11" isn't that small in today's NHL, especially for the Montreal Canadiens that have goddamn Cole Caulfield. And when looking at Berkeley Catton, I think he's going to develop into a gamer offensive 70 to 75 point guy, whether that's on the second line with the Kirby Dach, considering the Canadiens' first line is looking so good. That's a good problem to have. If Caulfield, Slavkovsky, and Suzuki are all legit points per game guys and Berkeley Catton has to play on your second line, him as a second liner would be fantastic. That would form a disgusting top six for the Montreal Canadiens. 5th overall, I have the Arizona Coyotes selecting Artem Leshinov. I still think that he is the best defenseman in this draft. 6'2", just does everything at a high level, producing very well at Michigan State this year. 28 points in 30 games. And mind you, he's almost the leading scorer on his team as a defenseman. As a 17-year-old, he's 2 points back of a forward that has also played in 30 games. He has 30 points. So he has been the best player on Michigan State, a pretty good Michigan State team in college hockey, playing against guys, forwards that are 20, 21, 22, 23. So he has the physicality already. He might be able to walk into the NHL next year. Not like he probably shouldn't. Save your ELC, especially for the Arizona Coyotes. You're probably not making the playoffs next year, but he is going to be NHL ready very quick. Again, like I said before, just does everything at a very high level. A solid skater at his height, not afraid to get physical, great puck skills. I think Artem Leshinov is probably going to be the first defenseman off the board. Will he go top 4? Definitely possible, but I have him kind of falling to the Arizona Coyotes, who would, although they did go Dmitry Simashev at 6th overall, I think Leshinov is a far better prospect and less of a project than a Dmitry Simashev. And they are differing style of players. I think they could play together at the next level. I believe they're both. One's right-handed. Simashev's right-handed. Regardless, who cares? Leshinov, they need another a future number one defenseman. They can't rely on Sean Durzi to be their number one defenseman 3 to 4 years from now. So I think they go with Leshinov at 5th overall. 4th overall, we have Caden Lindstrom heading to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And this guy is a 6'4" beast, 27 goals, 19 assists for 46 points in 32 games on a pretty loaded Medicine Hat Tigers team that has Gavin McKenna, who's going to be the first overall pick in 2026, as well as Andrew Basha, who's probably going to be a first-round pick in this draft, almost made this mock draft. When looking at him, even though he's 6'4", is a very good skater, obviously can rip the puck if he has 27 goals in 32 games. I think that he is going to turn into one of the better centers in the NHL. I think he can potentially be a top 15 center. He has that potential. He hasn't really shown a large sample size of this. His draft year -1 was not a little bit, well, it was like 42-ish points in like 66 games. So I'm pissed that he got hurt because we didn't get to see this larger sample size of him. But in those 32 games, he has a legit argument to go top 3 in this entire draft. When looking at the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think that he would either slot very nicely playing on that top line with Adam Fantilli. They'd form one of the best duos in the entire NHL over the next 15 goddamn years. Or if Kent Johnson does not really continue to take that next step, having a bit of a down year after getting sent down, I could see Lindstrom eventually being an elite second line center for this team. So I think it makes sense for the Blue Jackets to go with a forward and even with a center that could potentially play wing. They are on defense. They already have David Jiricek, Denton Mateychuk. Not saying like I would potentially take Leshinov here, but I think you're better off taking a forward compared to, I think Jiricek and Mateychuk are going to be elite guys. So take another forward, help out your forward core, and take Caden Lindstrom. 3rd overall, Yzerman. If the Ducks weren't picking here, I would probably have Lindstrom over Yzerman. I just think with the Ducks, considering they do have their elite 2 future centers of the future in Leo Carlson and Mason McTavish, I think you get that elite goal-scoring winger to partner, probably I'd say Leo Carlson with him. I think Leo Carlson could unlock Cole Yzerman. In terms of Yzerman not being the best driver of offense and not the best defensive player, I think Leo Carlson can help make up for some of those deficiencies, and I think you'd have a 40 to 45 goal scorer in Cole Yzerman on a pretty consistent basis, and Leo Carlson will be a 90 to 100 point guy, so I think it makes a lot of sense more naturally for Cole Yzerman to go to an Anaheim instead of, say, Caden Lindstrom, even though he's a fantastic player and probably can drive his own offense better. And in terms of the Ducks, you're not going to go defenseman here. You already have Pavel Minchikov, Olin Zellweger, and Tristan Luneau. So when looking at this, I like Cole Yzerman to the Anaheim Ducks. I know he's not the most perfect prospect, but I think the fit with the Anaheim Ducks just makes far too much sense in this scenario. And then at 2nd overall, Ivan Demidov, to the San Jose Sharks. The Sharks obviously previously took Adam Jiricek, and they have Will Smith. They have their center of the future. So here they get their winger of the future. And I think Ivan Demidov's play in the MHL, especially of late, he's been averaging almost 3 points a game in his last 12, 13 games. He has 60 and 30 games on the season, which is by far the most in MHL history, past Nikita Kucherov for the most by an 18-year-old. And that was the year after Nikita Kucherov got drafted. So when looking at Demidov, just such a skilled, high IQ guy. He's like a bust-proof guy, in my opinion. Him and Celebrini are the only guys that I'm going to say, I cannot see them not being at the very least elite NHL players, considering he has that high IQ. I've seen his passing is just off the charts. His hockey sense is just next level, in my opinion. So I think Ivan Demidov and Will Smith would form one of the better duos in the entire NHL in 5-6 years from now. And you take him, even though he is in Russia, unlike a Michkov who was signed 3 years after he was drafted. Ivan Demidov's contract is over in Russia in 2026, so you don't have to worry about that much. Take the second best player in this draft. Do not really overthink it like teams did last year with Matvei Michkov. And at first overall, everybody's worst nightmare, the Chicago Blackhawks get Macklin Celebrini. It stinks. I know it definitely stinks, but they are in the front runner right now for this. And when looking at Macklin Celebrini, he's been the number one guy for the past year or so, but he really solidified himself at this year's World Juniors, considering he was by far Canada's best player as the only 17-year-old on that goddamn team. He had 8 points in five games? Yeah, because they got eliminated in the first round. Ha ha ha. He had 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points. He was a stud. And I mean, he should have been the consensus number one guy before that, considering he was tearing it up at college hockey. He has 23 goals, 20 assists, 43 points in 28 games, which is, again, similarly numbers to a Jack Eichel and an Adam Fantilli, who are 8-9 months older. This guy is a June birthday. He's very young for this draft class. Similarly to Yzerman. Yzerman is a late August birthday, so he's one of the youngest players in this draft. That definitely helps him move up a little bit, considering there's guys that were born a month that are 11 months older than him. But with Celebrini, just does everything at a very high level. I think he can be a solid two-way guy at the NHL. Definitely with the shot that he has shown in college hockey, he can definitely score 40 goals in the NHL, a fantastic one-timer, as well as having that hockey sense and very solid passing to be a good playmaker on the Chicago Blackhawks. He probably end up being that second-line center. He might not have that insane talent that Bedard will have on his wings, but I think he can carry his own line and eventually turn into a top 10 center. Will he ever be top 5, better than Jack Hughes, better than Matthews, all those guys? Not sure yet, but I think definitely he'll be creeping in the top 10, solid 90-ish point center. I think that's very achievable for Macklin Celebrini. So let's go through it again. We got Tej Aginla at 16th overall. We got Liam Greentree, 15th overall to the Predators. Adam Jiricek, 14th overall to the Sharks. Michael Brandsegg, knee guard, 13th overall to the Devils. Konsta Helenius, 12th overall to the Islanders. Carter Yakimchuk, 11th overall to the to the Kraken, not the Canucks. Jesus. Zeev Boyum, 10th overall to the Wild. Sam Dickinson, 9th overall to the Flames. Anton Siliev, 8th overall to the Sabres. Zane Parik, 7th overall to the Senators. 6th overall, Berkeley Cadden to the Canadiens. 5th overall, Artem Leshinov to the Coyotes. Sorry, this guy's like a 20-minute video. I'm losing it. Caden Lindstrom, 4th overall to the Blue Jackets. Cole Yzerman, 3rd overall to the Ducks. Ivan Demidov, 2nd overall to the Sharks. And sadly, Macklin Celebrini to the Chicago Blackhawks. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this video? Who would you move up? Who would you move down? And I'll be seeing you in the next one.